Hi crafty friends, Shana from ShanoukiArt. This paper project is something a little different. I've only ever seen this once, and it was on Steffi Reed's YouTube channel about a year ago. I fell in love instantly. I'm not quite sure what to call it. Steffi Reed calls it a mini. It looks like a round journal, but it is not exactly a journal. It's quite magical though when you open it up. Just look at this. Between the two covers is a paper spiral, embellished and decorated. I think it's pretty amazing. I'll put a link to Steffi Reed's one in the description box below. Please do pop over and have a look at hers. It really is something to see. So let me show you how I made mine. I'm going to be using the papers and embellishments from the latest Stamperia pack called Golden Harmony. I live in the Southern Hemisphere and we're going into spring. But this autumn themed set I thought was perfect for my little mini. And perfect to showcase, especially to the Northern Hemisphere that are now going into autumn and Thanksgiving. Because my little mini is going to be about gratitude. We're going to start by preparing our covers. I want plain style papers for the covers because I'm going to decorate the covers separately. So I'm finding the pages that are quite plain. I'll save the ones with the beautiful designs for another project. And I have a whole pile of old CDs that I didn't throw out in case I could use them one day. And I think they come pretty handy today. I'm going to use 2 of these as the base for my cover. A great way to recycle. Now just to note, I haven't created this project before. As I'm creating it now and filming is the first time I'm doing it. So some things are by trial and error and I will change things up. But I will explain as I go. So I've drawn around the CD to get the size of the circle that I need, and as you can see I'm cutting it slightly bigger than what the CD is. The initial idea was to fold this over onto the cover, but I do change plans later on. I'm going to repeat the process for the back cover. I'm now going to attach the papers to the CDs. I'm going to use Mod Podge for this. I'm going to apply the Mod Podge over the entire face of the CD and then I want to press that down onto my paper. This video turned out to be quite lengthy, longer than what I normally make, but I have created chapters which you will find timestamps in the description box below if you want to click forward to anything or click back if you don't want to watch the entire video from beginning to end. And we'll do the same for the second one. Now, like I said earlier, I was going to turn that sort of edge over, and the idea is you're going to snip all the way around to create like a fringe, which is what Steffi Reed did on hers. But at the last minute, I decided I didn't want to do it like that. I was going to rather just trim the excess off, and I used my cutting mat and my X-Acto knife to do that. You could also use the scissors if you prefer. I just find that the X-Acto knife is a little bit more accurate and you'll get a smoother edge. But of course, do this with whichever way makes you comfortable. Once that's done on the one side, I'm just going to take an emery board or nail file and just go around the edge just to smooth off any rough pieces. I'm then going to repeat the process for the other side of each CD. I'm going to apply the Mod Podge, stick down on the paper, and then trim with my X-Acto knife on the cutting mat. If you don't have CDs to use for this, you can just cut out cardboard pieces as the base for your covers. I then started distressing the edges using my ink blender and one of my inks in the color Vintage Photo. And then as I started, I realized that you could still see the edge of the CD between the papers. I was hoping you wouldn't be able to see it, but you can. So to fix that, I'm going to add a little bit of gesso. I'm just using my finger and I'm applying very little gesso just in between that area where the CD is, and then when it smudges on the top of the paper, I just rubbed it off with my finger, which you can do while the gesso is wet. It does help I'm using vintage style paper, so if there is a little bit of gesso smudge, it actually just adds to the charm. You can leave the gesso off if you don't want. Now that the gesso is dry, I'm going to go in with the distress ink. The covers are ready, we'll decorate the front later. We're now going to create the spiral. You will need quite a thick cardstock or a double cardstock, so I'm going to use this one and I'm going to glue two pieces together to make it more sturdy. This paper is not part of the Stamperia kit. This is just scrapbook paper that I have in my stash. The color and style really matches my theme, so I'm going to use that. I have lots of it, so I can use the same paper for all my spirals. Now for cutting the circles, it's probably easiest if you have some kind of a round cutter or round dies. If you don't have either, you can cut them by hand. It'll just take a little longer and you'll have to cut with care. The circles for my spirals are about 1.5 centimeters wide, so I'm using a larger circle die on the outside and a smaller one on the inside. I'm going to add some washi tape just to keep the dies in place, and then I'm going to run it through my big shot. I have the big one. It doesn't really fit in the frame of the video, but you get the idea. And then when we open this up, we have our first circle for our spiral. We will need a few of these, so I'm going to repeat the process off camera and I'm going to create 6 in total. The more you create, the more decorating you'll do, the chunkier your little mini will be. So here are my 6 circles. We're now going to cut and assemble to create our spiral. We're going to start by cutting the circle open. We will do that for each of the circles. We will then attach one edge of each circle together and staple that in place. I did find this part a little tricky. My stapler is really big, the area I had to staple was pretty small, and I had the curls of the circles getting in the way. It took a little while, but then I got into the rhythm. We're going to continue the process, adding one circle over the other, and it's going to start creating a spiral. And once you've attached all the circles, you're going to have something like this. The next step is to attach the spiral to the covers. Using a piece of double-sided tape, I'm going to put a small piece on the one end of the spiral. I'm then going to stick that down. I'm going to put an embellishment where the spiral starts. This will help to secure it to the cover and also it'll make it look pretty. I'm going to find a die cut from the collection. We don't want anything too big. This yellow flower is perfect. I added some ink on the back side of this die cut, thinking that if it shows past the cover, you're not looking at just the white background, but going forward, I actually don't do that on all the pieces, I let the white show. I liked the contrast that the white created. To add the spiral on the back, I'm going to do the same with the double-sided tape. And to align it well, I'm going to place the spiral flat and then I'm going to put the cover over the top. Align the two covers and then just press it down to stick. We're going to add an embellishment at this end of the spiral too. I'm now going to proceed to decorate the spirals. Look at these die cuts from the kit. They have a metallic finish and I think they are so pretty. I'll start by gathering all the die cuts that I think I'm going to use, and then I'm going to mainly concentrate on covering the stapled areas. I'm going to place a die cut on the front and the back. Usually I let my staples show. I like them there for aesthetic purposes, but I'm thinking for this project and this theme, the staples don't really suit it, so I'm going to cover them up. I started with the first die cuts and I used Mod Podge to glue them down, but then after this I realized that a hot glue gun is better. Because I am gluing over the staples, I needed something that had a bit more height to it so it would cover the staple. Something else that you can do if you don't want the back part of your die cuts to show is to stick it down onto a piece of scrapbook paper and then fussy cut around it. As you can see, I've done that here. The paper that I've stuck it to is the same as the paper I used in my spiral, so when you stick it down you won't really see the back. It'll sort of blend in with the spiral paper. This of course is optional, and I tried a few different things with a few different die cuts. In the Steffi Reed video, when she created her mini, she put beautiful photos as part of hers. I didn't really have any photos that suited this theme, so I've decided to make quotes. My quotes are about fall and gratitude. I've used my 1.5-inch round punch to punch some circles from my scrapbook paper, and I'm going to write on those. I did have to have a few goes at this because I do like the lettering centered, and sometimes the wording wasn't spaced correctly, so I did it a few times, and then I also did some trials on some rough papers, but I eventually got there. Once I've written it, I like to go to each edge of each letter and make like a little squiggle, sort of like adding a tiny ball at the end. I think it changes the entire look of the font and makes it more fun. I've distressed the edges, and then I've also gone into my threads and picked some colors that suit my theme, and I'm going to do some scrunched up thread underneath each of my quotes. This adds texture and additional color. It also adds interest and dimension. So you can decorate your spiral as much or as little as you want. You can add photos if you like, you can add quotes, you can add pictures from magazines. I think the ideas are endless. You'll also notice some of the die cuts I'm using are a little bit big, and they stick out past the cover of the little mini. And I like it like that. I always like things spilling out of my journals and off the pages. I quite like the look when it's closed, that you see all the bits sort of falling out. You can cut yours smaller or keep it more aligned if you like a neater look. I know that some comments will ask, what are you going to do with this? And my answer is going to be absolutely nothing. I'm just going to keep it as something to look at that is pretty, and remember how much I enjoyed making it, how much it filled my bucket, and how much joy it brought me. I know that sounds quite cliched, but I create paper craft because it makes me happy. I don't create it for any other reason. And here I made an oopsie. I placed the hot glue in the wrong place. So while it is still hot and pliable, I have just scraped it off with a metal scissors and I'm going to reapply it. Mistakes do happen. I do show them and we move on. I'm also going to add a few pieces of Hessian string that I want to tie around and tie into big bows. I love using Hessian string for this because it is quite stiff and it creates really beautiful bows that hold their shape. And of course the color and texture suits my theme. Adding a small wooden cutout that says the word fall, and I'm going to use some ink with my ink blender just to add a little bit of color to it. For my closure, I'm going to add a piece of calico fabric. I've torn a strip that I'm going to stick across the front with some hot glue, and then I'm going to stick my elements on top. I really hope you enjoyed this video of me creating a mini, and I hope you're inspired to create your own. It is super fun. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell so you're notified every time I upload new content. Thanks again for watching. Happy creating, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.